And at the newly minted president of baseball ops for the Chicago Cubs, Chris Jed Hoyer, talking about the renewed financial flexibility he suddenly finds himself with. Cubs have done a couple things, as you know, over the last handful of days. Jock Peterson's there. They signed Trevor Williams, hoping for a rebound for the former Pirates pitcher. And maybe even extending a couple of their key cogs. I'm not talking about, Chris Bryant necessarily, but Javi Baez in the last year of his deal, Anthony Rizzo in the last year of his deal. Maybe a Wilson Contreras extension, although I think he's probably more likely to be traded than to be extended. But it doesn't look as dire on the north side of Chicago financially as perhaps it did a handful of weeks ago.
Yeah, interesting. Good job. I didn't know that press conference. Good pick up there. Baez and Rizzo, they must keep. Bryant's never going to stay there. There's too much water under the bridge with Bryant in the franchise. You'd have to give me a little more info on Contreras. I know he's not a free agent for, 2022, I believe it is. So you got a little time with him. But I do think that Baez and Rizzo, I think Rizzo's imperative. He's the heart and soul of the team. He's Mr. Cub right now. And I think Baez would be important, too. I think I don't care what they do with Bryant. They can give him $1 billion. He's leaving. I mean, that's all there is to it. They're singing in the... they're whistling in the dark, and I think they know that, if in fact they think Bryant's going to finish his career in Chicago. But Baez and Rizzo, I definitely think is possible. You'd have to give me some info on Contreras. Go ahead.
Yeah, you're right. Contreras does have another couple years of control, but again, with the dearth of, catchers out there in the landscape right now, he's a very desired commodity. And Jed Hoyer had some interesting things to say about Bryant as well. Bryant came out a few weeks ago, did a podcast, said the game wasn't, as much fun as it used to be anymore. He was getting a little tired of the trade rumors involving him. And Hoyer says that Bryant's in a great place heading into spring training next week. So we'll see what that means. I agree with you. Again, I think he's still a prime trade candidate, maybe not in the interim, but certainly by the July, trade deadline. And here's another name that we've discussed plenty today's show, and we probably will in the coming days. He's arguably the biggest name left out there, and that's Justin Turner, the heart and soul, if you will, of the world champions. And he's, a guy who's 36 years old. We get the idea that he's looking for a 3, maybe even a 4-year contract. He's not going to get that, but you wonder, given where the Dodgers are payroll-wise, where Turner is in his career, if this opens the door for other teams being prominently mentioned here, like the Brewers, like the Braves, maybe even a return to the Mets. This is a real big, impactful type guy. Could get very interesting to see where this leads, if indeed he does not return where most anticipate he will, that being the Dodgers.
And good move by the Brewers last week. We didn't really talk about this. They got the second baseman Wong there to play. They can move the other kid to first. Came with a 2-year contract. He's a very good defensive second baseman who's not a bad hitter. So that was a good move by Milwaukee. If they ever got Turner, they have some pitching. They got a decent bullpen. A very good bullpen with Williams and Hader at the moment. And then, of course, they got the 2 starters, top of the rotation. We all like Woodruff. Burns there, too. And you throw in, if they ever got Turner, to go with Yelich and Kane and everything else, that's a pretty good team. That would be a huge bonus for them if they were able to pull that off. I would not want him to go to Atlanta if I were the Dodgers, because, Atlanta came pretty close to beating them last year. And you bring Turner and you put him in the other dugout, they could have lost that series. But I still, a little bit like LeMahieu, Bruce, I still find it hard to believe at the end of the day that these two won't figure out a way to stay together there in Southern California. That's me from afar. I'm much closer to the Yankee situation, a little younger LeMahieu too. But I do think at the end of the day that Turner will stay with the Dodgers. I really do feel that way.
And I would agree with you. Incidentally, Colton Wong, 2 years, $18 million, the free agent deal to go from the Cardinals to the division rival Brewers. He will be on MLB tonight at 6 Eastern. Tonight, Keston Hiura moves over to first base, and certainly they do have positioned for Turner at third, obviously, should the Brewers decide to be a bigger player in that mix. And one other deal to make mention of, Jonathan Villar, the erstwhile utility man. Big season a couple years ago, hit 24 home runs for the Orioles. He gets a 1-year deal with the Mets worth a little over $3.5 million.
All right, useful little player. You're right, he had a good year 2 years ago with the Birds. and now he goes to the Mets. The Mets are going to be pretty good. They're not as good as the Dodgers, probably Atlanta, but they're going to be good. They got a good chance to be in the playoffs here in 2021. They probably will make some moves there around the middle of July if they have to. Good job out of Bruce Shine today with the Heat Check. There you have it.